Hi everyone, I'm Kara Suboy, and welcome to The Future Of, a show where we take a look at a major tech company and where they might be going next year in 2013. Today it's all about Facebook, and who better to talk to us about Facebook than executive editor Paul Sloan. So Paul,
yes.
Next year, what will change with Facebook as far as the user is concerned?
Yeah, I think you're going to see more of what we've been seeing the last few months, which means more ads.
Great.
I mean, they've been rolling out ads a lot on mobile. They say it's not overkill, but it's starting to get a little, a little crowded and cluttered. But this is where they're making money, and this is where their focus is. And as much as Mark Zuckerberg talks about, this sort of social mission of connecting the world, the fact is they're now a public company, as we all know, and the pressure is on, and his employees want the stock to go up, and that means more advertising. And the question is, how much more can they do before they upset people?
Absolutely, and before the users start to, turn off and just go to another site.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to one of the head designers at Facebook who designs for mobile, and he says the biggest battle that he has is that little button that takes you to the home screen. He lives in fear of how many seconds it is before someone just checks out.
Interesting. So something we've also seen develop in the latter half of 2012 is Facebook Gifts. Do you think that's going to grow?
Yeah, I mean, this is a great sort of niche business for Facebook that I actually think could become less niche and quite big. They're adding more and more partners. I think it's mostly smaller brands. They have some like Baby Gap, and they have some known brands, and there's some wine, and there's sort of, but they don't have the huge brands out there because they don't need Facebook and they don't want to pay Facebook.
But it does make Facebook some money, obviously.
Sure,
so
they take a cut. They take a cut through every transaction. If it's your birthday and I decide to send you a gift, once you accept it, Facebook and I put in my credit card information, which is another thing Facebook wants is a lot of credit cards on file.
Oh yes.
They take a cut. The cut varies depending on the merchant or the retailer, but it could be $1 billion business. What it'll be by the end of next year, I don't know. I don't know if it'll be quite that, but it'll add up.
In 2012, we saw Facebook buy Instagram, a pretty big acquisition. What types of acquisitions do you see in 2013?
It's hard to imagine them making big acquisitions. People have wanted, and I would love to see them buy Spotify. I know they've, it makes sense. Sean Parker's involved with Spotify. He was the founding president of Facebook.
Sure.
In a lot of ways, Spotify is really tied at the hip with Facebook. However, I can't imagine it happening just because of the difficulties of negotiating with the record labels. And Facebook sees itself as this platform. It wants all this stuff to happen via and on Facebook. It doesn't want to be the source. So it might want to lead you as a place to buy things, but it doesn't necessarily mean it wants to be Amazon.
Right.
It doesn't want to have to fulfill all, it doesn't want to, be that part of the equation. And I think it's the same thing with music. As entertaining as it is, the idea that it would buy Spotify. I also think it would be interested in Pinterest for different reasons. I don't think Pinterest would want to sell. I think Pinterest has its eyes on going public.
Yeah, and growing bigger in itself, yeah.
And there too, though, you have to ask, just because you're really successful on Facebook, rather, does that mean you buy it? So Fab, there's all these other companies that are very successful on Facebook. Does that mean Facebook has to own them? Or can they just use the traffic, use the engagement, and use the data, which is really what they want?
Those credit card numbers.
Well, more than that, they want to know your age, your gender, what you shop for, what you give to, how much you spend. They want to know everything so that when you're walking around in your phone, since Facebook's mobile, it knows what to target you with. 2012
was a huge year for Mark Zuckerberg. Not only did his company go public in May, but he got married. He kind of came out as a businessman this fall. What's next for him?
Well, he turns 29 next year.
Oh my gosh, 29. Old man.
There was a lot of doubt after the messy IPO about whether Mark Zuckerberg was the right man for the job. That really changed in early September when he gave this particular live interview in which he just sort of went from being this guy with a social mission to this guy who was coming out strong as a businessman. He head-on started talking about the thing that everyone was worried about, which is mobile. And he just kept talking about mobile. Suddenly mobile wasn't a problem for Facebook as it was before the IPO and around the IPO, but it was an opportunity, which is all they talk about now, is mobile as an opportunity.
Yeah.
And he just kept talking about how the user experience could be great and we could make a lot of money. And Wall Street wanted to hear that. And really, since then, there's been ups and downs, but the company's been doing quite well, and the stock the last month or so has done really well.
Certainly
it's
better.
still, $10 shy of IPO price, but it's going the right direction.
Yeah.
And so I think, Zuckerberg just has to keep the campaign up and be really vocal about, commitment to Wall Street.
Right, the mission to move forward. Yeah. Well, obviously a lot to keep our eyes on next year with Facebook. Clearly millions of us around the world will be. So thank you so much for the predictions.
Sure.
Paul Sloan, I'm Kara Suboy. Thanks for watching The Future Of.